Okay, welcome to the Jewell County Threshing Bee. This is our flag tractor, and if everyone would please stand for the national anthem. All right, let's get this parade going. And we'll be going in just a minute. Thanks to everybody that came out today. We really appreciate it. What a nice day compared to what we could have had the last couple days. Not bad. Our first tractor today, kind of starting out with the new before we get to the old. It's from Jewell Implement, and Danny Eilert is driving it for us. We want to thank Jewell Implement. They've been great today with furnishing a lot of things, donating for us today. And then our next tractor is one that's going to be in the raffle. So when you buy your raffle tickets, it may be the one that you go home with. Chris Belden is driving it. It's a 1941 Farmall H. And you can get your tickets up at the tent once this parade is over. I don't think there's anybody up there now, but that would be a nice one. You can drive it home and drive it in the parade next year. We'll try this. If you can't hear us, it could be the tractors, but we're going to turn it up a bit. Okay. Our next tractor is a 1947 International W4, owned and driven by Steve Boxler from Norton, Kansas. This tractor participated in the World Record Parade of Tractors, and that was in Grand Island, Nebraska, I believe. Our next Farmall is a 1937 Farmall F20. It's owned by Norman Wendell and driven by Norman. He's from Almena, Kansas. And if you haven't noticed, Farmalls are featured tractors today, so you're going to see all of those first. Next is a 1924 Ford Model T truck. It's owned by Bud Hefner and driven by Cliff Silsby. And lots of Silsbys in the back. Our next one is a 1941H. It's the owner's Winslow collection. It's driven by Cody from Guide Rock, Nebraska. And they said this tractor belonged to his grandpa Lloyd Warnke, if I say it right. And it looks like you've got a great little helper there. Hi. Next one is a 1951 Farmall M, owned by Lonnie Hedstrom and driven by Mike Al, Cortland, Kansas. He has a fan club. Coming around the corner is a 1950 Farmall M. Owner is Irvin and Steed Underwood, and it's driven by Aaron Underwood of Esben, Kansas. This was bought new by Aaron's great-grandfather, Ernest Blattner. Great to see these stay in the family like this. Okay, you can probably hear this one coming. This is a 1923 Russell steam engine. It's owned by the Jewell County Historical Society. It was donated by Bud Hefner, and it's driven by Mike Silsby. This is one of the hard-working machines here at the Threshing Bee. You can probably see it down over the hill working later today. Next, we have a 1971 856. It's owned by Winslow Collection and driven by Chad Winslow from Guide Rock, Nebraska. And it looks like he has a love seat on the back. That's the way to travel. Air conditioned, everything you've got. Yeah. Next is a 1939 F-20 by Richard and Kimma Boyles and driven by Richard Boyles of Esben, Kansas. This tractor was restored in Illinois, very similar to the F-20 Neil and Delmer Boyles started farming with. Next, we have a 1952 Farmall Super C, owned by Mary Robbins and driven by Drew Fitzpatrick. This is a 1946 Farmall H owned by Lee Robbins and driven by Kevin Robbins of Mankato, Kansas. This is a 1950 Farmall M, owned and driven by Bill Anderson, Superior, Nebraska. Always good to see Bill here. Coming up next, 1951 Farmall Super C. The owner is Terry Garman. The driver is Clayton Underwood, Beloit, Kansas. And they wrote, "This is a really good row crop tractor." It's really great to see these kids participating in this, so give them your support. This is a Farmall C, owned and driven by Jacob Cockroft. Oh, you're not good. Yes, you are. Wait, what? Aspen, Kansas. And there's no information on it, so. Oh, that makes sense. We didn't have that tractor down. I was like, there's Jacob Cockroft. Hey! With the Farmall C. Okay, next is a 1983 5488 International. It's owned by Nathan Saint and driven by Nathan and Sierra Singer Riding from Jewell, Kansas. Only 3,900 of these were produced, the last model to leave the International Harvester manufacturer in Rock Island, Illinois. Um, 1953 Farmall Super H, owned by Ramon Alvarez and driven by Kimber. Oh, there's hiding out, right? This is a 92 flat bottom duck boat with custom blind built by Ramon and Alex Alvarez. It took a full year to build and over 3,000 zip ties. The Alvarez family asked to please support Ducks Unlimited. What's your number? 70. Okay, 1942 Silver King military model. Owned by the Eilert Ranch and driven by Joe Eilert of Jewell, Kansas. This tractor was rescued from an air base in Ohio before it got crushed after World War II. But it stays strong just like Joe. I don't know that you guys have numbers, but number 16. 1967 John Deere 10, owned by Aaron Underwood and driven by Allison of Esben, Kansas. This tractor was restored by Aaron and his father, Irvin. They'd like to thank everyone for making their centennial, their 150th, a success. I hear that it was great. I wasn't able to attend, but here it was wonderful. Next one is a 1980 Cab Cadet 1650, owned and driven by Jacob Smith of Scottsville, Kansas. He bought it in Minnesota, right? Yeah. Thank you. 49 is a 1984 Yamaha Moto 4 250, owned by Gavin Garst and driven by Gavin, Mankato, Kansas. Oh. This is a 60 row crop Oliver, driven and owned by John McDaniel. Winchester. Are you from Winchester? Wellington. Yes, he came from Wellington to bring this nice tractor. The 1985 Suzuki, owned by William Cockcroft and driven by William, from Espen, Kansas. '80 Club Cab 104, owned and driven by Peter Smith, Scottsville, Kansas, and he bought that in Concordia in an auction. 1980 Club Cadet 127, I think it says, owned by Peter Smith and driven by Brad Smith, Scottsville, Kansas, and he bought that one in Jewell, so started out in Jewell County. This is a 1975 concrete dumper, owned by Peter Smith and driven by Dave from Scottsville, and bought in Nebraska. What's that name? Next is a 2008 Yamaha. It's owned by Justin Schonover, and it says driven by the mayor. So there you go. This is a 1945 Oliver 60, owned by Loring Rowe and driven by Parker. And there's other people on there too. The whole family, by Mankato, Kansas. We're not seeing your information in here. What year is your tractor? We don't know what tractor it is, but we do know the brand, right? Yeah, it's a case. 8. Oh, and driven by the dog. Okay, there we go. This is a 1953 Super Diesel W6. It's owned by Orrin Underwood and Terry Garman, Burr Oak, Kansas. This is a 1954 Super D9 IHC, owned by Orrin Underwood and driven by Orrin and kids. They don't have a number, but it's a Farmall, and it looks great. Number 1. 1948 Oliver 77, owned by Hooley Alcorn family and driven by Sean Tadican and John. He's doing a good job, little farmer. And I'm not sure there'll be a number on this. They just said they were just going to wave. This is more of the Alcorns with their John Deere 50. And everybody give Jack a big hand. He's put this show on with all his volunteers, but he's the one everybody runs to and says, we need this or we need that. So he's done a great job. 1961 Ford 801, owned by Arilla and Roger Fetty and driven by Bruce Fetty, Ionia, Kansas. This tractor was formerly owned by Don Topliff of Jewell and was driven in the threshing bee. If you guys remember, his little white dog drove this. If you remembered him and this little dog that did that. Next we have a 1972 International 1466. It is owned and driven by Randy Thayer of Scandia, Kansas. This is a 1961 3010 John Deere, owned by the Eilert Ranch of Jewell, Kansas, and it was restored about 10 years ago. Another Eilert Ranch tractor, a 1967 John Deere 4020, Jewell, Kansas, bought from Newell Implement in 1966 for $7,400. The tractor has 20,000 miles or hours on it, and it plowed all day yesterday. So it's a working tractor. Probably going to go back to the field maybe before the day's out. Probably. This is a 1959 John Deere 630. It's owned and driven by Caleb Eilert of Jewell, Kansas. This is a 1953 John Deere 60, owned by Delvin Hansen and driven by Josh Alcorn, Mankato, Kansas, Evan Hansen original, it says. Next is a 1953 John Deere 50, owned and driven by Dale Swope, Zenda, Kansas. I said that right. This is a 1953 John Deere 40, driven and owned by Don Coonrod of Hays, Kansas. Thanks for coming out, Don. Next is a 1971 John Deere 5020. It's owned by Randy Thayer and driven by Jerry Houston of Scandia, Kansas. Okay, we're going to change color here for just a minute. This is a 1951 Massey Harris 30, owned and driven by Alex Robbins of Jewell, Kansas. He's got a fan club too. Here's a 1951 John Deere A, owned and driven by my neighbor, Chase Wagner, Victoria, Kansas. Well, that's not my neighbor. We'll say Ionia Esben too. This is a 1949 John Deere B, owned by Justin Angleton and driven by Justa and Ava Angleton, Esben, Kansas. This is a John Deere 430, owned by Justin Angleton, and Eli Angleton's driving it from Esben, Kansas. Good job, Eli. This is a 1960 John Deere 730 diesel, owned and driven by Mike, I think I said that right, Phillipsburg, Kansas. And following him is a 1959 John Deere 830, owned and driven by Ben Bruning, Phillipsburg, Kansas. This is a 1950, it's way back there. I already talked about this too. We're changing to red after this for a minute with a 1950 Farmall M, and it's owned by Bill Thomas and restored by Bill Thomas. And the next one is also a Bill Thomas tractor, a 1954 Farmall Super MTA, I think it says. Previously owned by Bill Land, restored by Bill Thomas. This is a 1948 DC Case, owned by Roger Ryder and driven by Richie Ryder of Jewell, Kansas. Yeah, they didn't give us the paperwork. John Deere, driven by somebody with a coonskin cap that's adorable though. This is a 1948 John Deere B, owned by Lloyd and Donna Johnson and driven by Lloyd Johnson Jr. of Mankato, Kansas. Okay, this is a 1952 John Deere AR, owned by Lloyd and Donna Johnson, and Anne Marie Neal from Parker, Colorado is driving it. 1965 Massey 150, owned by Dale Wright and driven by Noah Shipman of Jewell, Kansas. This is a 1953 Chevy Bel Air, owned by Dakota and Emma Walker, and it's driven by Dakota of Mankato, Kansas. Kind of quiet after the tractors. This is a 1946 CJ2A Willys Jeep, and it's owned by Rex Weaverling and driven by Brett Ernst. And the whole family is in there, I think. Hi, guys. Next, we have a 1953 Dodge Power Wagon purchased by Fred Bonert in 1957, and now it's owned by Darrell Bonert. He totally restored it starting in August 2020 and finished it in April 21. The yellow and black is the original color. It's all original as it was from the factory. He said, my dad purchased this because it has four-wheel drive and we lived on a dirt road and we can still get out when it rained. I hauled wheat to the elevator in this when I was old enough to drive and have a lot of other memories. Pretty nice wagon. Don't have anything on you guys. You don't have a number, you're just driving through the parade. Wave at everybody at least. Yeah. This is a 1975 Chevy Monte Carlo owned by Kathy and Dennis Beckman and driven by Cody Dean, Esmond, Kansas. It was bought from its original owner. The car is in original condition as it came off of the showroom floor. 75 was a good year. Next up, we'll have a 1966 Oldsmobile. Owned by Tornado. Oh, there it is, down at the bottom. Owned by Janice McDill and driven by Eli Vance of Mankato. Owner by Janice's dad, who bought it from a dealer, in process of restoring it right now. I need to give a round of applause for my little runner. She's gone back and forth 100 times today. Yay, Lauren. Next is a 1950 Chevrolet Deluxe hardtop owned by Lynette Learling Alexander and driven by Lynette, Mankato, Kansas. This was the first year Chevy made a hardtop. In memory of Rick Learling and Learling Chevrolet. Yay. 1952 Chevrolet Styleline, owned by Lee and Mary Robbins and driven by Lee Robbins of Mankato, Kansas. It was purchased in Hill City, Kansas from Money Chevrolet after sitting on the floor room display since 1981. And it's going really fast. 1988 Dodge F-150 owned by Paul Danley and can't read the writing. Mankato, Kansas. Next is a 1929-30 Ford Model A Doodlebug, owned by the McDill brothers and driven by Cooper McDill, Mankato, Kansas. This was the poor man's tractor. Following that is a 1929 Pontiac four-door sedan. Malin McDill owns it and driven by Daniel McDill, Mankato, Kansas. This is a 1928 Ford Model A, owned by Curtis Ernst and driven by Curtis, Mankato, Kansas. It was bought from a customer in Republic County, Kansas. Oh, and you got three of the grandkids in there too. Michaela, Mabel, and Adela. 1973 Chevy Corvette. Emily and Anna Moore Neal and driven by Emery, is I saying that right? Parker, Colorado, the second owner. Bought 6 years ago. You did most of the restoration yourself. Nice job, it looks great. And next is, whoop, go. 1918 Ford Explorer, Jewell County Sheriff's, Mankato, Kansas. Well, we know the ones in trouble, they all just took off. 1948 John Deere, owned by Orrin Underwood and driven by Terry Gorman. Okay, and we have Tyler driving. And last but not least is a 1958 John Deere 420 driven by Caleb Eilert and also owned by Caleb Eilert from Jewell, Kansas. And I think that's the end of our parade. Once they get through, you're kind of the grand finale, guys. Thank you guys all for coming out. We really appreciate it. The sawmill's going to be going. There's going to be all kinds of things, the tractor pull. So make sure you stay around a while, get some snow cones, get some other things, and see all the things that are happening. Thank you.